So efficiencies, when we talk about cost
Yeah.
and efficiencies, absolutely we can bring efficiencies into it, but we're also making sure that the quality is there because we're controlling the quality from the original database or the information that we're giving the avatar to talk about.
So this would be a kind of a small language model in effect, content-wise, that sits behind that would populate what the digital twin of me would be saying.
You can limit to what its knowledge is about,
right?
Or you can open it up. You can draw off the internet. That can be a bit more dangerous.
Yeah.
So
one of your team was describing it as like a sliding scale.
Yeah,
you can limit it down.
Absolutely. So you're fully in control of what the digital twin will say and do, and how it will act. And how appropriate it can be. It can't insult anybody, and all those sorts of limitations can be put onto it.
Are you seeing learning organisations talking to you about this? They can often be quite reserved about technology because there's a fear that the people within the department are then going to be replaced, obviously.
Yeah.
But in my experience, actually, I'm seeing more investment in learning and development than ever before. Are you having learning organisations contact
We are.
you? Yeah,
We're in conversation, but as you say, there's quite a lot of, I suppose, concern around
naturally.
it. It's something very new. So, well, is our department going to be closed down because now it's all going to be done with AI? Well, no, because you're still going to need somebody to develop the content, but you're also still going to need human beings on a stage in a main auditorium when you're delivering something big.
Yeah.
What it allows you to do is to amplify what is being said at those big events or the big launches or the big training days that your delegates or your employees have got access to 24/7.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we created the Learning and Performance Institute many years ago, there was a big debate around the use of the word performance in there.
Yeah.
And it was heated, actually, to be honest, because there was the theatrical connotations around the word performance. But what we wanted to major on was the idea of efficacy, this idea that, well, what are we doing this for? What were the objectives at the beginning? And what do we want the impact to be?
Absolutely.
To me, this probably represents the best combination of scale of technology, but near to human experience that we can probably get in 2025. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where we start to get the quality, because, we've all been involved in some of the online learning where it becomes a tick box, or you're just running through it very, very quickly. And at the end, a certificate pops up and said, you are now skilled at doing this job. Well, you're not really.
No.
Whereas the avatar will take you through it, be more meaningful, more interesting, more engaging. So you want to learn, you want to be part of it, rather than just ticking a box.
There's probably a lot of value in it being somebody that is actually within the organisation that is digitally twinned as well, because you will have a natural affinity to that person. Is that true? Or?
Yeah. And to all intents and purposes, you wouldn't tell it's not that person.
Right.
So you are talking to their digital twin, but it is quite scary when, all of a sudden...
You've done yours, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got mine, and you start to see yourself, you think, blimey, there's multiple me.
But for me, it would be a more intelligent version of me, obviously, if it's got all of that research in its mind. So there's always a plus side to that.
Yeah.
So this is really fascinating to me. So this is what's happening now, but I've had the privilege of listening to you today talk about something that you're working on at the moment that I know exists, but might really affect how learners are engaged in sessions. Could you maybe share that with us?
Yeah. So I think the way it's moving forward, and for us, what is coming next is really exciting in terms of it's two-way. So we can now see whether the audience is really engaged. Not just that, they're looking happy or they're looking at the screen, but are they really, really learning? Are they angry? Is it disbelief? Do they believe in the information that we're getting out of there? So it's taking to another stage that we can now start to monitor the audience in terms of, are they learning? Are they really engaged with us? And there's no GDPR element to this, because it's completely anonymous. So what the machines are now doing is looking at an audience, whether it's one person or whether it's 1,000 people, and saying that audience are starting to get bored, they're not learning anymore, they're switching off, they don't believe it. They may be anxious about something. So we can start to change the content as the presentation is starting to roll out.
Live.
Right. Now, as we move on from that point of view, what's coming after that point is we still got to make sure they do something differently once they've had that training. So how do we now build the benchmarks and the behavioural change and the results and the return on investment or the return on experience back into this whole model? So what we're starting to see is a chain reaction happening here, that we start here with their investment and we end there with the return, and we can prove it. And that's been the problem, I think, across our industry and many other industries. How do we prove this actually
Well, that's been
works?
the ultimate goal, Dale, hasn't it?
And I think that's what excites me. We're getting to that point of evidencing, so long as we put the right benchmarks in and the right tools to measure as we're going, and the touch points, we end up with, yes, that investment there gave that return.
So this is the ultimate win-win-win in that the learner, you're making sure that the learner is engaged at all times. You can monitor that live. Let's say it's a Teams, they're delivering on Teams. The facilitator themselves can actually live monitor how well they're doing and see that, their own expressions, and if they're maintaining intensity and keeping people engaged. But also if a company's invested in that training, they can then get a report on the engagement levels,
Absolutely.
which is probably a pretty good predictor as to whether that would be efficacious from a learning experience perspective.
And effective to the organisation, because if you imagine, we've done the training, but actually it was a bit of a tick box exercise. They've all passed, but they don't really know. They don't really know how to take that training and really take it to the full. What we can now say is, yes, they did, or they didn't. And what we need to do is maybe change the content or change the context, or we're just not hitting the nail on the head here. So the scary part for me is, who does a lot of presentations, this thing could be on the stage flashing at me saying, you're losing them.
Or you're amazing.
Or you're, exactly. But this is real-time change.
I think a common misconception around like Darwinism, sort of survival of the fittest type thing, is it's actually not just survival of the fittest, it's survival of the most adaptable. So I think from a learning perspective, if you're arguing that all three parties involved in this, the purchaser, the learner, and the facilitator, for want of a better phrase, can actually be consistently improving, then we're really starting to add value. I think probably the most important skill, in my opinion, for 2025 for anybody in the corporate environment is that curiosity, that capacity to learn, that desire to learn. So if they can actually see how good they are as a learner, you can work on that, and then everybody's constantly improving. So ironically, we talked earlier about AI maybe replacing human beings. I see it as an augmenter for people, and it's going to make us better, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think we can all learn, whether we're a learner or somebody being learned. What do they say? Every day is a school day. Absolutely, that is true. And this is enabling us to look back, or it's almost putting a mirror up in front of us to say, you could do better on this bit.
How good are we at this?
Yeah. And I think anyone, where we present or whether we teach, whatever it is, should be open to constantly learn and how to do that better, how to deliver that better, how to create a better experience for our audience.
It's something I've coined as learnership, which isn't a word, but I've decided that I'm going to register it as a word. And we talk about that a lot at the LPI. Dale, it's been a privilege to spend this time with you today and to learn myself as to how a creative comms agency such as DRPG can support learning organisations, not just practically, but also philosophically. I think we have a lot to learn from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.